Really interesting news from Manchester United. Matt Judge has resigned as Man United's Director of Football Negotiations, quite a specific role. And this is as they continue to overhaul off-field operations. And actually, I'm always very skeptical about Glazier ownership and also Woodward's ownership. But Judge has been involved in Man United transfer business since 2014. And, well, let's say that has been a period of underperformance by the people that are signing off transfers at Manchester United. They've basically spent an awful lot of money and they've given out some huge contracts to players that don't deserve it, and they've overpaid for players, and the players haven't worked. So Judge is gone. He was allegedly responsible for contract negotiations, and and you had like Darren Fletcher, who's just come in as a technical director, and John Murtagh is the football director. And this change also comes on the back of Jim Lawler and Marcel Boot, head of global scouting, both left Manchester United. And it looks like this is potentially the start of a new era for Manchester United. And it can't be any worse, can it really? Well, it actually can be worse. It can get much worse. But this looks like potentially Richard Arnold, who's taken over as CEO of Manchester United, is looking to get rid of all the people who worked under Ed Woodward and who for the past sort of 9 years, 8 years have really failed in the transfer market, not supported managers, not bought the right players, re-signed the wrong players, sold the wrong players, and not had any type of strategy. So if this continues in the summer and Ten Hag comes and an actual world-class director of football come, then Manchester United may have a chance of actually competing. Without that, without structural change, that's not going to happen. But I'm very, very encouraged by Judge leaving, because I think that you hear stories, they might not be correct, some of them. They might be a little bit of propaganda. But it looks like United have been outsmarted in the transfer market. I mean, they've overpaid. Look at Wan-Bissaka and Maguire, for example. You paid £130 million for those two players. You're probably lucky to get £70 million back if you're very lucky. So they've not been fit for purpose. They've not bought the right players at the right price, with the right profile, the right hunger, the right physicality, all those things that Ralph Rangnick has spoken about. And actually, maybe Richard Arnold wants to sweep away the old regime and start completely again. And if he does, he'd be very wise to do so, because he's not qualified to buy players. Joel Glazier is not qualified to buy players. Ed Woodward isn't qualified to buy players. Only a world-class technical director and a world-class director of football. And I don't include John Murtagh or Darren Fletcher as world-class operators. They're basically apprentices using one of the biggest football clubs in the world to cut their teeth, which doesn't really make sense. So I would probably release them as well. You need a technical director, a director of football, a manager with power, and you need an infrastructure in place behind him and a scouting network that's going to look for certain types of players. But let's see what happens. So far, so good. I hope it continues. I hope Darren Fletcher and John Murtagh leave the club as well, and I think someone like Paul Mitchell or Ralph Rangnick as technical director, Paul Mitchell as director of football, or maybe Luis Campos, and then the manager, all the manager's backroom staff, and then a plan towards acquiring young, hungry players that really want to play for the shirt. And I think long-term the Glaziers will benefit. The wage bill will potentially be lower, and you'll have some type of strategy to bring the team back. So let's see what happens. I'm encouraged. I must say I'm encouraged.